typically with the self-protection that you're referring to comes an awful lot of self-dishonesty. You wind up having this agony and this pain and this tension and this frustration. And the question that you can ask in that moment is, well, how do I make this go away?
Hey, it feels really good to be back. I have missed this space, and more importantly, I've missed you. Over the summer months, I've really felt your support as I took the time to pause and recalibrate while I was focusing on my healing. So thank you for that. This show exists because of you and because you keep showing up and you keep sharing it and you keep asking the hard questions about healing and what freedom really looks like. And so, yes, we're back. The podcast is back. And this fall, the lineup is incredible. We've got some returning favorites like Dr. Nadine Macaluso, Dr. Peter Salerno, Dr. Robin Stern, and Eleni Sagrado. Many of the names that you have told me that have made a huge impact on you. And we're also welcoming some brilliant new voices, including Dr. Leslie Dobson, Dr. Josh Coleman, and Judge Michelle Locke, who's bringing an episode on an insider's view of what really happens in court when you're battling a narcissist. And I'm trying something new this season, something I think you're going to really love. Every Thursday, I'll be answering one of your questions in a brand new segment called Fan Mail. It can be something personal. Maybe it's a question that you've had in your mind that you've been wondering about, maybe that you've never heard anyone talk about before. But I would love to feature your biggest question. Just click on send me a text in the show notes or email me at hello@carriemcavoyphd.com with fan mail question in the subject line, and I will answer your question on air anonymously if you'd like. And we're kicking things off this week, so go ahead and send me your biggest question because I'd love to hear what's been on your mind and your heart. And now let's start this new fall series with a huge fan favorite, Dr. Les Carter. Dr. Carter, it's always an extreme pleasure to have you back on today. Thank you so much for being one of our regular guests.
Well, Dr. McAvoy, I'm so glad to be here with you. So,
thank you.
We've done this a few times now, so I always like talking to you. You know, if you've ever been on the receiving end of an interview, like I have a whole bunch of times, you learn to appreciate the ones who know how to ask the right questions and how to have the right kind of conversations, and the ones who don't have a clue. You've got a clue. So I always enjoy talking with you. You're a dear person, and I so appreciate your work. So thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. You become our annual summer event. So thank you for being here. I want to really hone in today on antagonism, specifically dealing with conflict, because that is an issue that usually we start to see that there's a big problem between couples or between any type of relationship is when we hit a conflict. So what do you think goes wrong around conflict from a maybe grand map level of the view of this?
Well, okay, you're just jumping right into a really large thing that I talk to people about, and that is you can tell most accurately about a person's emotional maturity by watching how they manage conflict. It's really easy for me to get along well with someone when they are doing everything the way I want, or when they agree with me, or they give me compliments. I mean, anybody can be nice then. But it's when we just are not on the same page, or when we're not thinking differently, or disappointments come along, or unexpected tensions show up. That's when you're going to find out how mature a person is. And when you ask what's going on that causes conflict to rear its ugly head in a bad kind of way, this is where your insecurities can start showing up. If you and I have a conflict, and if I'm confident in me and I'm confident in my ability to reason well with you, then I don't need to raise my voice. I don't need to be a game player. I don't need to be coy or defensive or evasive. We can just talk. And that's what healthy people do. And I know the people in our audience right now, they're thinking, well, I haven't had a whole lot of those kind of conversations when I'm in conflict, because that's when the unhealthy stuff shows up. Right. And it's like, what we're doing is we're saying, let's go ahead and take a real good look at what you're carrying around, because it's in this moment we're going to see exactly what you're made of.
I've almost seen it as it differentiates people who are very relationship focused versus people who are very self-protective focused.
Yes.
That's how kind of I put it in those types of camps, is that you're seeing the same.
Oh yeah, yeah. One, of course, that I specialize with the whole topic of narcissism, and when I talk about narcissism, there are a whole lot of different ways to look at that. But one of the ways that I describe it is it's the dark side of the human condition. Every one of us on the inside has our moments where we look back and think, I shouldn't have done this well, or I didn't do that very well, or I should have done it better, or I've got my insecurities, or I have my question marks about whether people are going to accept me or not. And healthy people can say, okay, I know that stuff is on the inside of me, and I know that I have a propensity sometimes to be selfish or overbearing or controlling, and I need to make sure that I contain that. And so they have self-awareness, they have honesty with themselves first before they can put it out there with other individuals, and they do something of a healthy nature, and they know that there are much healthier alternatives. The narcissistic, unhealthy individual doesn't do that. They carry so much strain and tension on the inside. We refer to that as they have their false self. They've got all this tension on the inside, but it's like, I don't want to expose that. I don't want people to know that I have a whole lot more ugly stuff going on inside of me than I care to share. And so it's so common for individuals in their moments of disagreement to put, like you just said, to put up those barriers of self-protection. And in doing so, a lot of ugly things can follow after that, because typically with the self-protection that you're referring to comes an awful lot of self-dishonesty. It's like, I don't want to get into the real stuff, honest. I just want to protect my image. And my image may not necessarily be consistent with what's really going on inside, or with what other people are picking up is going on inside of me.
I tend to notice, and I wonder if you think it's true as well, is that the person who's defensive assumes the other person is defensive as well. And the person who's working for the best interest of the relationship thinks the other person's trying to do that as well. And there becomes almost the major problem is we're assuming wrong motives or positioning of the opposite person. Do you follow what I'm saying?
There's an element of projection going on.
Yeah.
I mean, real strong, particularly if I'm defensive, you probably are too. And many individuals, whether they realize it or not, carry a great deal of pessimism around. And I do think, and this sounds a little strange, but I do think we need to have a little pessimism.
Well, what do you mean? Can you say more what you mean by that?
Well, I live in a broken world, just as you do. And there are times when I'm going to encounter people that don't have their act together. And sometimes I'm having a bad day, and maybe I don't have my act together. And so when we lead with a certain amount of pessimism, what I'm saying is, let's factor in that if somebody's not having a good day, we don't need to turn it into a big, huge issue. Sometimes we just need to say, this isn't going well, and let's see that we can just kind of get through it with the least amount of damage possible. Or let's suppose that you have an individual in your past or in your present who's very harsh and mean and abusive. The pessimism in me says, and my next conversation with that person about our differences probably isn't going to go well. I need to factor that in. I mean, we just need to understand there's a certain amount of pessimism that is out there that will show up within myself, within other individuals, and I need to brace myself for what that might lead to.
I felt like when I was in that bad relationship, though, that I never really got there. I kind of continued to live in the optimism, which was almost to my downfall. And I wonder if you see that as well, is that people continue to persist that this worldview is true. Like, if they just understood better, then we'd do better. Or I know that they just had a bad day, and if I talk to them on a different day, I'm going to get a different. I know it's the definition of insanity according to Einstein, but we have this mindset that it's just somehow it's the way we're communicating. We're meeting a person who's not intended to work it through with us.
Carrie, I'm going to make a real easy guess and say that on the Myers-Briggs, you're the intuitive,
Yeah.
Okay, so am I. Yeah. Intuitives love to ask the why questions.
Yeah, I do.
And it's like, well, let's dig into that, and let's figure this out. Now, if you say that to me, or if you say that to yourself, it's like, oh, good, we're going to get somewhere.
Right. Which is why you and I are having this conversation, because we love to do this type of thing.
Exactly. And which is why you and I each went into the professions that we did.
Right.
Because it's like, well, no, I want to. And no apologies. It's like, well, I think that's the better way to be.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I don't want to think. So if you're an intuitive, and by the way, that percentage wise, it's roughly about 27% of the population are intuitive. So it's not real high. But if you're an intuitive, your natural inclination would be to say, well, I know that if we manage that aspect of communication well, good things can happen. And so I'm willing to do so. And then we can make the fatal mistake. Surely you would like to do the same in reverse toward me.
Yes.
And there's so many people that if they sense that you're trying to draw them into insight, and, along with that, there's a certain amount of acknowledgement or admission of who you are and what your pluses and minuses are. As soon as they sense that that's what you're trying to do, it's like, I don't do that. Because we go back to what you said just a couple of minutes ago, and that is there's so many people that have their protective barriers up. It's like you're asking me to do something that A, I've got way too much to hide. B, I'm ashamed of who I am. C, I'm giving up my power if I started acknowledging my problems. And so they just go straight into the overpowering method toward you. And therein lies the problem. And it's just a formula for conflict, disaster.
Yeah, I can almost hear the audience though saying, okay, so if 26% of the population is intuitive, what's the other 75% like? And then how does that shape the way that they deal with conflict?
Well, the opposite of the intuitive is we call it the sensory. If I can touch it, feel it, measure it, I'm okay. In other words, black and white, measurable. So, for example, if I'm trying to intuitively discuss something with another person, I might say something like, I know that I'm thinking on a different plane than you are. So I want to know a little bit more what caused you to feel the way you do. And let's see if we can figure out how that's going to match up with where I am. And so you want to just say, let's coordinate. The sensory person, it's like, all I know is you're an idiot, or all I know is I don't like that tone of voice, or something like that. And it's like, no, what I'm asking is let's pull our mask off and let's just talk. And that other person, it's like, okay, you've touched on my fears. I fear vulnerability. I fear looking foolish. I fear seeming to be weak. I fear letting folks know, what my pain is. All of that, I don't know what to do with. I fear rejection. And so they have all of these hidden fears. And if I were to go in and say, well, I can tell you're feeling like I might reject you. And it's like, no, I'm not. Yeah, you are. And so that's why I go back to the beginning. Conflict, it just has a way of bringing out all sorts of pathology from other individuals. And it's like, all I'm wanting to do is just talk about something between you and me. And there's just a whole lot of people that cannot, for the love of life, they just can't do it.
Right. So when you get in the middle of something like that and you see it going south, what should someone do? You say that you really would like to have resolution. Maybe it's becoming clear resolution is not going to actually happen. Maybe that's part of it, is realizing resolution is not going to happen here. But what do you recommend when you start to see that it's just getting nasty?
Gary, years ago, I wrote an article. Before I had my YouTube, I had a mailing list where I'd send out articles every week. And one of them was entitled High Awareness Comes with a Price. And when you have a situation where you've got these people that are at loggerheads, and we're thinking, well, which one of you is going to take the initiative to try to bring some sort of reasonableness to this? Well, you've got somebody with high awareness and somebody with low awareness. Well, by default, that person with low awareness isn't going to be the one that's going to bring any kind of healthiness to it. And so if you're a high aware kind of person, it's like, well, I guess it's going to be on me to try to at least take this to a place where it's not so ugly. And I've had so many people say, well, I don't want to have to be that person, because it's almost like it's its own curse. It's like, okay, well, then let the person with low awareness take charge then. Well, I don't want that either.
I say, see how well that goes when you do that.
So there comes a point where the person who has that stronger self-awareness and that willingness to go into a healthy space, that person's going to need to be the one that says, I'm going to do what I can to maintain my sanity and to maintain my well-being and reasonableness. And if the other person cannot or chooses not to coordinate with me, then I'm going to need to figure out how we can land this plane, and I'm going to get off the tarmac and go somewhere else. But you kind of have to take it on yourself, knowing then that you're probably going to have some serious loose ends in the kind of conflict that's there.
Yeah, that was what struck me, is that what you're saying, and this is really the hard, heavy part, is that you're going to have to be okay with the fact that there's not good resolution, and that you're left in a not great emotional space when this conversation's over. They probably are going to be licking some wounds, because defensive people tend to be very good at being offensive.
The best defense is a good offense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very simple truth that most of us, we acknowledge it, but we don't want to. And that is, pain exists.
Yeah.
And when I say pain, I'm not talking about just slashing your arm. I'm talking about psychological pain. Let's say it's somebody that you have chosen to give your devotion to, and you want to be a really good partner with somebody, and that person turns out to be a bald-faced liar. Or you're dealing with people inside a family or friendships or work, and you think, okay, I want to manage my anger well. And so I want to understand the difference between aggressive and assertive anger. I'm going to choose the assertive without having to go into the aggressive. That's what I'm going to be. And others in the room will say, well, fine with me, but I'm going to do the other. And they don't want to work with you. And you wind up having this agony and this pain and this tension and this frustration. And the question that you can ask in that moment is, well, how do I make this go away? I don't want to feel pain. And the answer is, well, then I don't mean to be too facetious, but die.
Oh, yeah. My thought was,
that's the only time you're going to stop having pain.
Yeah, or live on an island. I was thinking of Castaway, Tom Hanks on the island,
Yeah, the sharks are probably circling around in that island.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying? Part of our humanity involves pain.
Yeah.
And we need to come to terms with that, rather than saying, well, we have to get rid of it. It's like, no, I need to have my own coping skills when I'm in pain and that other person chooses not to be a partner in pain reduction with me. All they're doing is they're trying to increase it.
It's interesting, because what you're really alluding to is that we not only need to be constantly improving our own physical fitness, but we're also needing keep improving our emotional fitness as well. And part of that is learning how to deal with uncomfortable moments and disappointing relationships.
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned that conflict is sort of like a big indicator to the healthiness of the relationship, but it often happens quite late into getting to know someone. Do you have any recommendations about how to pick up the fact that you're in a relationship with an immature person faster, other than starting a fight? I mean,
yeah, I'm asked that all the time, and the problem is now you have some folks they're just glaringly obvious, but others are a little bit more coy, and they're the covert narcissists typically, and they're able to cover it a lot more. But one of the things that I look for, in fact, I've got a video about questions that a narcissist can't answer, and one of them is what is it about yourself that you find to be disappointing? And typically what they'll do is they'll say, well, I had a bad relationship with so-and-so. And you know what they're going to do? Somehow they're going to say, yeah, and that person was a real jerk.
Yep.
And so they go into the blame mode, as opposed to saying, yeah, I had a relationship with someone that it didn't work out well. And then I look at myself. And it's like, it didn't bring out the best in me either. They don't want to do that. Or, what are some of your hurts and what are some of your pain? Or where could you improve? And so you can ask those kind of questions and kind of get a sense as to where that person is coming from. And if they either blame almost automatically, and or if they talk to you about their hurt, they talk to you like they want you to become a complaint buddy with them. My ex is terrible, or my old man, he was mean. And, they just kind of made life miserable as soon as you walked in, and all they do is complain. It's like, well, but we're not talking about how you're learning from yourself, about yourself. And so typically, if you are willing to go into those kind of penetrating kind of who are you questions, you'll start seeing patterns emerge.
Yeah, mine had a really great way of, it looked like a mature answer, but if I had listened more carefully, and I did sense it, but I liked him, so I wanted to overlook it. But he said, I didn't interview the past women that I dated well enough. Then he outlined what was wrong with them then.
Yeah.
He didn't go on further with his failure to his over and maybe idealization or the fact
interview them correctly.
No, yeah. It was just that he didn't interview well enough.
Okay.
He was a better interviewer at work.
You know what it is?
What?
Victim.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I'm a
you're
victim
right.
of everybody else's misery.
You're right. He did.
Sometimes you have relationships and it takes time to get to know someone. And, I've got my idiosyncrasies and quirks just as you do. And let's take some time. Another thing that we have to watch for as well is when people are too quick to want to latch onto you. To me, that's a huge red flag. I had this one woman and she was 40-ish or so, and she'd have one broken relationship after another, bless her heart. And she came to my office on, a Wednesday or something like that. She said, last weekend I had it was a first day with this guy. And, it was incredible because we were just going to have dinner and that was going to be it. But we wound up talking till 3:00 in the morning, and we just were talking about all of our past and history. And man, it was so honest. It was wonderful. And I started telling him about all my hurts and all of this, and she just went on and on. And she thought it was really, really good that they were having this bonding right away in their very first meeting. And I'm thinking, well, okay, I'm glad you had that. And she was excited. I think I found the one. I'm thinking, well, if you meet somebody and they say, well, why don't we take our clothes off? We've known each other for 30 minutes. It's like, well, don't you think that's a little quick? And in the same vein, I'm not going to take my emotional clothing off, if you will, and reveal everything there is to know about me right away. We're gonna take time and have patience and let that build. And the unhealthy person is going to say, let's do this as fast as we can. And let's just dive right in. And, we're not going to waste any time with this. It's like, well, if love has a patient element to it, you've heard the phrase, love is patient, love is kind, it's not arrogant, it's not rude, then I've got time and we'll get there.
We always give each other the advice, don't walk into a grocery store hungry. You're going to walk out with things you don't need. I say to people, don't walk into a relationship meeting hungry. Now, can you not be hungry? We're all a little hungry emotionally and psychologically, but if we're aware of it, we can get ahead and slow ourselves down from that, like you just described, that click.
Right.
That feels almost magical because you and I both know the amount of information we don't know about that person and we're projecting our best selves into them is a whole lot. And that's going to be very dangerous.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the things that people like you and me will tell folks is, no, healthy relationships require a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about that back when I was young and naive, like in my early 20s, thinking, I can do it. And it's like, no, when you get older, like 50 years down the road, it's like, okay, now I know what we're talking about because it just doesn't fall into place and we can't assume things. And it's only as relationships and strains and tensions begin to build. And then it's like, wait a minute, I'm seeing a side of you that I didn't think I was there quite as strongly as I had hoped. That's when we find out what we've got. And then can we sit down and work it through? Or do we panic? Or do we offer advice that the other person isn't ready for? And do we try to coerce and judge and shame and all the rest? Or can we still have that patience? Let's figure out what this means.
When do you think a conflict gone bad is an indication this is not a savable or even a relationship we should continue in?
That's a tough one because there's so many variations of bad. Mm-hmm. But when you have some strong name calling, shaming, comparing to other individuals, if there's just a real thick wall of unwillingness to hear, a lack of empathy, all of that, those are signs that says this is not looking good. Now, they can come back later on and say, sorry about that, I wasn't at my best. But it's like, okay, healthy relationships require empathy. Healthy relationships require a sense of freedom. And when I say that, if you say, Les, I don't like the way you handle that, rather than saying you can't do that, I'm trying to restrict your
right.
choices. It's like, well, you're free to say that. Let me hear more about what you have to say. Healthy communication and conflict resolution requires a sense of equality. I don't feel the need to one-up you and to hold myself above you. And so when you look for those kinds of qualities like that, and the person is trying to one-up you, there's not much empathy going on. There's an agenda that's there, and it's really strong. And then the defenses are super tight. There's not a willingness or ability to receive unflattering input. That's when you've got the red flags.
Yeah, and that can be hard to see sometimes because some people can come off looking sophisticated enough. You think there's a meeting of the mind when there really isn't. So is there a way, for us to spot that better? I know for me, I'm starting to tune into better my sense of confusion or just feeling bad when I walk away from that conversation and noticing there's no efforts at repair. That for me to even if I can't always see it, I can sense something's not good here.
Yeah, and one of the best ingredients you can have that will help you in that regard is called time, T-I-M-E. Time does have a way of revealing truth.
It does. It does.
And then if you begin realizing, well, I seem to be working harder at making this a little bit of a better relationship than that other person, or finding our middle ground, then it's like, I don't want to just be the primary one that does that. I want to know that there's a reciprocal effort there.
Yeah, and that is so important, that reciprocity. I mean, if you're always the one doing all the work to repair, chasing them down, that says this person's not as invested as you are. Yeah,
a good word for our audience to hold on to is the word mutuality. We're mutually invested. I'm 80% invested and you're 20, but we're each 100%.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to jump over to the podcast extra and talk about, so you're in the middle of an argument and it's not going well. What are the practical steps that you can take to be able to sort of extricate yourself carefully back out of this dynamic? So I want to give them how to argue well, or at least shut it down. For those who don't know who you are, which I don't know how people can not know who you are, but if they don't know who you are, how can they find out more about you?
Well, I've got the Surviving Narcissism channel on YouTube. That's my big thing. And I've been doing it for several years now. And then I've got books, The Anger Trap, When Pleasing You is Killing Me, and plenty of others, actually. And then I've got courses that are on my website, survivingnarcissism.tv. So I'm out there.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'll make sure I highlight some of your books that are right in line with this topic for those who want more help from you. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Carter. This is, as always, an absolute delight.
I hope it's thought-provoking.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode. Are you following me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube? You can find me at Carrie McAvoy, PhD. Or you can learn more about me and my resources, such as the Toxic Free Relationship Club, at carriemcavoyphd.com. And I'll see you back here next week.